Welcome to Single Leg Parlay. This is our Week 0 recap episode, so grab a cold one and enjoy. I've got Andy here with me, Danny, Sunshine, Matt. I'm also Andy. Before we get to anything else, boys, cheers.
Let's do
Cheers.
it.
Cheers.
All right, we had a little bit of a pedestrian Week 0. As a group, we were 500, 3-3. So lost the VIG, but that's okay. Week 0 is just about not losing your shirt and having enough left in the chamber to fire off this week. So this is the week where we really get into it. Normally, Week 2 of college football is called overreaction week. But for teams that played in Week 0, it's never too early to overreact. So, guys, I'm going to give you some phrases, and I would like you to tell me whether that phrase is true or an overreaction. So first off, I've got DJU is a bad quarterback. Al, what are your thoughts? Is that real or an overreaction?
It's real. He's bad. I mean, I guess it depends. Do you want a quarterback who can throw it past the line of scrimmage, or do you not?
Ideally,
Are we playing football in the 19th century or the 20th or the 21st even? How do you feel about accuracy? How do you feel about throwing it downfield? If those are things you look for in a quarterback, DJ's not your guy.
Matt, what's your take? DJU, bad quarterback.
I think bad is relative here, right? We know he can throw the ball downfield. I've seen videos on the internets of him throwing the ball very far. He supposedly has a very strong arm. I think DJU is largely what DJU is. He's never going to be spectacular. He is a 60% completion rate quarterback, 2 touchdowns to every pick. I'm far more concerned about the play calling. I usually trust Mike Norvell's judgment in calling offense. And from the second possession on, Georgia Tech just run blitzed the whole game. They brought safeties in the box every time, and you didn't pivot out once. You know, DJ, except for the last possession, where you scored a fucking touchdown passing the ball around. Maybe you need to focus on varying it up, because I do think there was a bit of hubris from the coaching staff thinking, we can just run the ball all day on Georgia Tech. They can't stop us. Well, they did, and you didn't pivot back. But back to the original point, I think DJU is what he is. I don't think he's bad. I would never say he's great. I think he's just been DJU for the last 4 years, which is an average, mid-ass quarterback. Mid-ass.
He doesn't turn the ball over.
All right, Matt, assign percentages to these three things. DJ being bad, Norvell being bad at calling plays, or receivers not having talent. Just this past week, not like
just a pie chart. Like
how would you assign blame for the
I would
loss
say
those three?
DJ being bad was 20%. I would say that Norvell calling plays was 50%, and then the receivers were 30%. I really think the play calling, the decisions they were making, they were trying to go from 2nd and 11 with running plays to try to get it to a manageable 3rd and 6, and every time they did that, there was a run blitz, and we lost yards. It was like a repeatable process that was insanity.
I don't think you can separate Norvell's play calling from the fact that DJ, he knows he has a limited quarterback. So he kept them in the game until the very end. It took a field goal with no time on the clock to beat you. And, he knows he has a limited quarterback. And, I know everybody's going to shit on Georgia Tech, but they're a good team. They have a good coach, a good new coach who's building the program back up to what it's been since Miami joined the ACC, which is much better than us.
One more question. Do you think DJU, so it's been reported he got paid $600,000 in the transfer portal, some numbers, right? We're not exactly sure how honest those numbers are. Would you pay $600,000 for DJU to go to your school, Andy?
No.
You would just ride it out with the team you have, or the players you have. You don't have like a huge quarterback this year, right?
Luke Altmaier's coming back.
Right.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's more accurate than DJ.
$1 million per air yard is a little steep.
There was this. I felt like there was this narrative out there, and I don't know where I got this, so maybe it was just me, but that like DJU struggled at Clemson, and then he went to Oregon State last year and like just totally like revamped his image, and he was like had a good year, and it's like now people were excited about him. And I looked at his stats; he had the exact same year.
So they had in the
Oregon
advanced
State.
stats, he's like a top 25 quarterback, right? So it's not like
His yards per attempt were really good last year. And I think he had he had more touchdowns but the same number of interceptions. I think he upped his.
It was like one more touchdown, I think.
Okay.
It was
But
like really
he threw
close.
the ball
I don't know.
downfield more than anybody in college football. I think his average air yards was crazy. That's why I'm astonished by the coaching and how bad the wide receivers must be. When you're throwing, you ran like fades to a 5'7" wide receiver multiple times and it worked. That's the crazy part. You went to Ja'Kai Douglas way too many times. I think their receivers could be a problem, but you've got to have plays that work. You've got to have something that works. Square ins. If they're rushing safeties and they're playing like man free at the most loose defense for passing, you got to have square ins or something that could take over the middle of the field. If they're not, it was a puzzle. It was a terribly called game. And you know what? Fuck
next.
Randy Shannon. Can I just add that?
Clearly
in there?
not.
Randy Shannon as our linebacker coach. He's been a terrible hire. We haven't signed a linebacker since I think Obama was in office. Like it's been an incredibly long time.
This is his best job coaching Miami this year.
Has been his best job.
Like,
We've had him.
thinking FSU.
We've had him for like 4 years. He doesn't get fired because Mike Norvell doesn't fire anyone. He's like a loyal to the cloth kind of guy. And it's frustrating because we don't sign linebackers. They don't get better. The worst part of that game was the linebacking play. It was awful. I think we had 8 missed tackles on outside runs that netted for like 75 yards, right? They turned into 80 yards, 75 or 80 yards after the missed contact by the linebacker. Awful linebackers. I'm sure Randy Shannon's a fine guy. I probably shouldn't say fuck him, but he doesn't need to be coaching here anymore. He should go join the enterprise.
It was an excellent opinion on is DJU bad, Matt.
Sorry. You can take whatever you want in or out of this.
Is DJ bad? Fuck Randy Shannon.
I told you I may go off a tangent here. I'm back in.
I love it. Let's do it.
It's okay.
All right, next one. Is this real or an overreaction? Georgia Tech could make some real noise in the ACC. Sunshine, what do you think?
Well, I'll start by quoting Danny because I don't necessarily agree with this take, but it was a good one. Anybody can make noise in the ACC. No, I do think that Georgia Tech can make some noise in the ACC. I think that, I think they're a program that is in the rebuild mode, and I think they've made some great strides. And I think that a lot of people are sleeping on them because they're Georgia Tech. But I don't think that it's an overreaction that they can make some noise in the ACC. I think now that they have beaten, probably with the best the ACC has to offer in Florida State, that was sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tech's a legit team. I'm now a little, I'm a lot more confident in them, my 500 club.
The 500 club. So I think we're overreacting quite a bit to Georgia Tech. It's not uncommon to do week 0, week 1. I think they were fine. And I think they played better than Florida State for what it's worth. I think the game was coached better by Georgia Tech. And I think Brett Key is a good coach. But I think they're clearly limited there as far as everything that goes into the ACC. I think they'll eventually be found out. And they'll probably be a 500 club or a 7-5 team. But hey, at least Brett Key's better than Randy Shannon, Anybody's better than that.
There we go. There it is.
When the chat's better than
Yeah,
the
God,
show.
you're killing me. I'm trying to make a point. I keep seeing Jess come up.
All right.
Oh, that stays, Andy. The laughter.
Like a 3-minute laughter break.
Oh.
All right. Anybody else have anything on Georgia Tech?
All you got to do is go one game over 500, and you've made noise in the ACC. So,
I would say.
Hold on.
Oh,
Wait.
go ahead.
So, in the ACC, how many teams are in there now? Jesus,
17?
I don't even know.
62.
17. Okay. Do you think the Georgia Tech is in the top 7 of those 17?
They could be number 7.
I think they could be number 7.
They could be number 7.
I was going
Right.
to say. I think the fact that game was in Ireland really kind of throws a wrench in things. You can't really judge either team accurately off of, traveling thousands of miles overseas, doing the whole rigmarole. It's a tourist visit, how many of these kids are going to go back to Ireland? Probably not very many of them. So, it's a whole bit where you have to manage your players and expectations and all of that, and it being the first game of the year. So crazy things gonna happen.
Yeah. That game is always a crazy one. It's never reflected of the outcome. Remember only a couple years ago that Northwestern didn't win a game in the United States, but they did win a game in Ireland to start the season and then continued to go 1-11. So against Nebraska. So look, these wild outcomes happen. I am not overreacting to anything except how terrible Randy Shannon is. And he's awful. And that's not even overreaction. I take it back. I'm properly reacting to how bad Randy Shannon is as a coach and as a recruiter. He's awful. So he seems like a lovely man, though.
It's interesting that you bring up that Northwestern-Nebraska game in Ireland 2 years ago, because it was game 0 of week 0. Everybody watched it. Everybody's like, oh, Northwestern, they won a game. They must not be that bad. And then I faded them the rest of the year and cleaned up. And I don't think Georgia Tech's going to go 1-11. But I do think people are a little higher on them right now than maybe they should be. Right? It was one game. Let's wait and see. So I do plan to fade them.
The beautiful reaction, everyone's shitting on Florida State, and they deserve it, right? But teams get better as the year goes on. You can have a bad game, especially game 1. I'd rather look like shit game 1, and then you're, as a coach who gets paid $11 million, has to tweak the game plan. Now at least we have that game out of the way when Boston College comes into town on Monday.
Next one we got here, New Mexico takes a big step forward in Broncos' first year. I'm going to say that that's real. At the beginning of the game, they put up some sort of stat that New Mexico had 42 transfers, and they posed it as a bad thing. When your team only wins a couple of games, replacing them all with better players is a good thing. They also significantly upgraded their coach in Bronco Mendenhall.
I'm so glad you brought up transfers. Last year, there was a little team that took 63 transfers, and everyone loved them and fell in love. And then they came out and won a first game, and they won the second game, too. And then the remainder of the season, they turned into dog shit. It was Colorado was that team. Colorado is far more talented than this New Mexico team. I think Bronco will be a good coach with New Mexico over time, but I think the preseason projection of 2.5 or 3 wins is going to reign pretty fucking true come the end of the day. And they're just not there yet. They don't have the quality depth. They played fine the other day. Montana State stepped on their own dick most of that game, but
it's true. 2 scoop and scores.
It wasn't great for Montana State, but they came back, and this team doesn't have the qualities to go out and win the game yet, right? They're going to end up kind of getting beat up a little bit. I don't see them being particularly good, regardless of that outcome.
All right, next one. SMU will struggle in the ACC. Al, is that real or an overreaction?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I get why that could be an overreaction, but honestly, they did not look like they had their shit together offensively, and that's the whole thing. That's the black box. That's what you build the team out of. Not a great showing. So I also don't. I mean, Nevada being what they are, they can cover. I think SMU. Obviously SMU played poorly. They can play better. I don't think they can play better enough to actually, contend for a title in the ACC or even get a shot at that game. So that's how I'm defining struggling here. Are they going to finish at the bottom of the ACC? Probably not. But this is slightly above 500 squad by the looks of it.
I think that this is a overreaction, mostly because everybody struggles in the ACC. So telling me that SMU is going to struggle in the ACC seems like it was kind of like an obvious take up front. Also, Rhett Lashley always been really good in this conference. I think we went undefeated in what was left of the American Athletic Conference last year. He gets up for the big games, and he wasn't up for the first game this year. Obviously, they didn't dominate the way the line said they should. They didn't cover, but they did pull out a win in a hard-fought game. And he like Matt said on FSU, you can improve as the season goes on. ACC games will be later in the year, and it's not like the ACC has a bunch of world beaters. It's a bunch of teams around the same level. Guessing he'll be around 500. is struggling for SMU this year, going 4-6 in the ACC or whatever.
I would say that'd be struggling. I think the win total was like
I think it was
7.5, something like that.
Or is it 8?
Was
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I mean they'll be one of those teams like the rest of
8.
us that's around 500 at the end of ACC at the end of the year. I mean, sure, we all struggle. The only team that doesn't is Clemson.
I think they're going to struggle on Saturday, but that's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Nevada flying over their win total of 2.5. Al, is that real or an overreaction?
Yeah, I think that's real. So, they lost to SMU, which it took me a second to realize that because they were in control of that game for so long before letting it slip away. But I think 3 wins is very doable for this team. Just some teams on their schedule they have a shot to beat. Georgia Southern, Eastern Washington, San Jose State, Hawaii, Air Force, UNLV. That's too many teams they can hang with to not get 3 wins. So, yeah, I think they can get 3.
I mean, yeah, it was, that SMU game, to say they controlled it for so long, what was their biggest lead? 2 touchdowns? I mean, that
14, 17, something like that.
It felt close because you were expecting SMU to get their shit together, which
they did in the fourth
end.
quarter and scored 17 unanswered points, 16 unanswered points,
Yeah.
something like that. In the fourth quarter to win. So yeah, maybe SMU actually already has their shit together. They just took them till the second half to figure it out.
3.5 quarters to figure it out.
Well, I mean, 19-7, I think, was the second half score. So that would have covered if they did it twice, right? It was 23.5 points. Not that I had it.
Who's counting?
Regardless, no, I think that's an overreaction to say Nevada's going to, because they hung with SMU for the first half, they're going to suddenly win, 4 or 5 games. Yeah, that's it. Fly past the 2.5. They don't have 1 yet. They're already 0-1. They're not going to fly past 2.5. They might get 3. They might get. Is 4 flying past 2.5?
What is like?
I think 4 if they have it by mid-season, right? If it takes till their last game to get 4, then no.
Man, if we're comparing,
no, they're not. They are not going to fly past 2.5. They will not. They will not get 5 wins.
Matt, did you have something you
No,
want to
I'm
add?
just saying that's an embarrassing. The Wright brothers would die knowing that we're comparing flight to winning 3 games. That is not what they envisioned when they had invented the human flying contraptions.
Do you know how far the Wright brothers?
It is, however,
Yeah.
it is, however, what Spirit
19
Airlines
feet.
envisioned when they talk about.
They're the 2.5.
I feel like the opposite, right? I feel like the Wright brothers would shit their pants if they saw a plane today. They'd be like, "What the fuck is that? That's a demon." They rode a fucking bicycle with paper mache branches. That's what a plane was to them.
That's enough Nevada talk. Hawaii will struggle to find 5 wins on their schedule. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to say it's real, as I believe the only person here who stayed up and watched any of this game. I watched the entire first half. They scored 14 points on a Delaware State team that went 1-11 last year in FCS. They went 1-11 in FCS, and Hawaii can only score 14 first half points. And of those 14, one of them was a punt return. So their offense actually only scored 7 first half points on an FCS team that went 1-11. That's ridiculous. They're bad. They're not going to get 5 wins.
You cannot brag about staying up until midnight to watch a football game. I was up at 4 a.m. watching the Sydney Swans spank that ass. All right. I'm not staying up until midnight to watch Hawaii get their asses kicked. And even though I also had Hawaii to cover by, I think it was 22.5 or something, or 30, it was 34.5. There was no chance of that. So I just handed that money back to the books.
It's adorable
Matt,
that you justify your love for Nevada. And you say Nevada plays well, you can justify that, and you get mad at Delaware State, who's not good. Did you hear about Delaware State's travel last week? They all missed the flight. They didn't think they were getting to Hawaii in time to make it, to play a game at midnight. I think Delaware State fought admirably. All right? And you're comparing just first half points? Is the game a first half game? You can't justify these players. Maybe they got better as the game went on. I don't know if Hawaii will find 5 wins on their schedule. I don't. And I'm not going to find out because that shit is on midnight and they have to pay for like Spectrum or go to the local gas station and like pump a gallon of gas and watch the TV there in order to find Hawaii. But I'm gonna continue to bet the over, and I'm gonna continue to back Hawaii because I'm a goddamn American who loves gambling Hawaii football.
Oh, I gambled on Hawaii
What's the
football.
Delaware State mascot?
Hornets.
Took 40 points.
Oh, Matt. All right, Matt, you sold me. I'm in.
Yeah. And let's not crap on Delaware State. I guess we were crapping on Delaware State.
Fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck them harder than Randy Shannon.
Oh.
Who gives a shit about Delaware? It's the worst state.
It's
No
the
one
worst.
cares about
The
Delaware.
first state and the worst.
Is there a state anyone cares less about than Delaware?
I always forget it exists.
Just
Rhode
about
Island, maybe?
Every business in the world's incorporated there, but yeah. nobody
Yeah,
cares
I'll be
about
there
it.
next month for work.
In a little shitty locker because tax
It's-
loopholes.
Kind of.
It's its own state, but it's basically a suburb of Philly.
Al, I hope you're aware that Single Leg Parlay LLC is based in
Certainly
Delaware.
is.
Not only am I aware, I'm Delaware.
All right.
Oh, I'm on one, boys. I'm fucking hot tonight.
This is probably an obvious question, so I'll cut it if nobody has an interesting take. But there are now 3 FBS teams that are 0-1. 3 FBS teams that lost in week 0. Of those 3, who bounces back the best in week 1? And the reason I say this might be obvious is because only one of them is a favorite. FSU is laying 17 points at home to Boston College. The other 2 are Nevada, getting 8.5, 9, depending on where you look, at Troy, and then New Mexico is getting 31 points at Arizona. So it's FSU, right? Like we all agree on that? Or
I don't think any of those teams cover.
You don't think
I'm
FSU
on
covers?
2 of those teams.
My guess would be FSU. If they can contain Thomas Castellanos in this game, which I don't know if they can, with the linebackering problems that I talked about and Randy Shannon's bitch ass. But if they can contain him, they should look fine this week.
Yeah, I think lessons learned in BC is trash. Lay it with that.
Bill O'Brien's the head coach, by the way. Did you know that?
No.
That's a fun fact. Bill O'Brien, BC coach. He's back, baby.
Bill O'Brien, Boston Bottom.
Matt, if you thought that Georgia Tech dragged that game into the mud starting in the second
it's
quarter
gonna be-
with those 9-minute drives, Narduzzi is going to drag it into the bog. It is just going to be the worst.
How many times do you think Narduzzi came watching the game, the Florida State Georgia Tech game? I'm guessing if he can get it up twice in that 3-hour span, he came twice.
He was in the hospital for dehydration.
I'd like to share a take on the Boston College
I'd love
game.
to hear it.
Yeah, go for it.
So when I went to Florida State, when I was a young man, 2006, they joined.
young man.
When I was a young man,
I played the silver ball.
Oh, see, I was going with my father. Took me into the
To see
city.
a marching band.
oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
actually, the city.
Andy, you're much younger than Al.
The Who is my favorite band, though, so I can't fault
What?
So in 2006, when they joined the ACC, everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be Garnet and Gold versus Garnet and Gold," and thus, like the first blackout game. And I'm going to say college football history was born. I don't know that. I'd never heard of it before. Whatever.
Just say it.
So we all bought all these black shirts and all these. It was going to be the game of the fucking century. And both teams fucking sucked. And they played that game at noon. And we were all dressed in black. And we were boiling. And they fucking won. BC beat us. And, I mean, we were just both terrible. But I am going
Hell yeah.
to this game. And it's a night game. Even though we lost and we might suck. They can't reschedule it on Monday. So I'm going in black,
need a
baby.
Sideline report. We're gonna need a blackout sideline report from Sonny.
I saved the shirt for 18 years.
Are you wearing the blackout shirt?
No, I'm
Oh,
sure
I would
not.
love that. That would have been so sweet.
Except for I would have had to take pictures to prove it. Hey, I hope that people are selling them while we're down
I
there.
hope so too, buddy. Godspeed.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I went to a Miami FSU game when I was in school, and they were selling Thugs T-shirts in Tallahassee with the U as the U,
Yeah.
and obviously I bought it and wore it. But then one of my buddy's friends borrowed the shirt, and I was like, I need to get this shirt back, and I never got it back, and now I don't talk to that.
What's his
Send
name?
me.
Call him out on the pod.
No.
Do it.
Well,
No.
at least post his number so we can call him.
Let's dox
So
him.
It's fucking bad.
867.
Can I guess?
5'3".
If you want.
Put it in the chat.
But yeah, that's a solid T-shirt.
Oh, 9.
But I miss it. I wish I had it.
All right. So this is totally random, but have you guys seen the headlines that the Big 12 is in talks with a new school to join them for next year? That school is UConn. Who the fuck wants that? But
Well, UConn.
Yeah.
but they
State
can't
of
win as an
Connecticut?
independent, getting to schedule whoever they want. Now they're going to play Oklahoma State every year. They're going to play Arizona. They're going to play Iowa State. That Kansas State. They're going to die.
Basketball.
Man,
for basketball.
Everyone must really hate Washington State. Oh yeah, that's why basketball. I was gonna say Washington State and Oregon State. Like they don't nobody. They'd rather have UConn, but yeah, it's because basketball.
It's like the Drake meme, right? Like Washington State, Oregon State,
UConn.
UConn.
Yeah, it has to be basketball.
that.
I think they get a really good TV contract, and the Big 12 basketball is awesome, right? So, your Mark clearly thinks basketball is the future, which maybe he's right, but I think everything indicates college football is the way to go if you really want to make revenue. I don't know how that number works, but I think UConn's really excited about it. And why didn't the ACC add Washington State and Oregon State? Like, you got Cal, you got Stanford. You could start doing like pods of schools and like have them play like regionally and create like rivalries from that, and then like cross. It seems like it would be an easy thing to do.
Somebody said on one of the pods a week or two ago, I don't know if it was Al or Danny, they were like, Cal and Stanford must fucking hate those two schools. And we're like, we're only coming if you leave those two losers behind. That's the only thing that makes sense.
For sure.
Okay,
That was me.
that makes sense. If that's what they did, then kudos. Touche, all that shit. That's great.
And the UConn basketball take makes perfect sense. And just to show you how I'm in college football mode, never even occurred to me. Did not once think of like, oh yeah, UConn's also got a good basketball team.
Not only a back-to-back champs, I think, right now.
I was like, who the fuck wants UConn in their
You
conference?
also have to think of the profitability of the sports going forward. I mean, you just look at the NBA versus the NFL. What does an NBA player make versus what a college football or an NFL player makes? And it's
CD
ridiculous.
Lamb, $34 million a year.
It's the
Just
same
like
as
what was it?
Dennis
I
Schroeder.
didn't even know their name.
Dennis Schroeder probably gets paid the same amount.
Dennis Schroeder. There you go. Yeah.
You guys,
So it's the
Like
point
the
is
kid from Law and Order?
you pay less players, less money, and you pay less players, less money, and then they play more games. So there's more revenue opportunities there. I think
It's the
that
same
as
amount of
college-
money as Desmond Bain and DeAndre Ayton make.
as college sports become a business, I think that that's what they're looking at as far as adding a basketball school that can increase their brand in that front because it'll be more profitable for them to help support their other sports.
That makes perfect sense. And never thought about it for a second.
I'm a Chelsea fan, so we actually only think about sports in terms of money.
Of money. every soccer fan every Premier League fan is like an accountant. But like,
You have to be.
I mean, you are, but like, yeah, everyone's like, got to know the numbers, got to know who's on loan. It's like this is like the most boring aspect of a fun sport. I love it.
Thanks for listening to the newly rebranded Single Leg Parlay podcast. Visit our website at www.singlelegparlay.com, where you can read more of our thoughts as well as subscribing to our newsletter to have our picks delivered straight to your inbox each week. And don't forget to follow Single Leg Parlay on all of your favorite social media platforms. Cheers!